Shalom, my brothers and sisters. Out here on YouTube, we get a lot of voices. Just like in the world, with all the different denominations and teachings, it seems like everybody wants to put out their opinion. And a lot of times, the message is spoken so softly to people that it pats them on the back and almost doesn't make them have any fear of their sin once they start hearing truth. They take the messages so lightly that they don't actually get shaken or set free, taking the word seriously enough. And then there's the other extreme of getting angry at the sin and speaking or yelling in such a way that the person feels they're being attacked instead of the sin. Because the enemy doesn't like having their hold on a person cut and cut. So the enemy wants to make a person rebel against that sharp cutting of truth sometimes. Rebel against the person bringing the sword. The fact is, the sword is the word of truth that Yeshua brought. And we're all to point each other to that truth so that that sword can cut us. And we do that in love. Sometimes this love, it hurts, but it's going to cut the evil bounds of the enemy. And not just the flesh and wound our brothers and sisters and cause them to stumble. This takes the humility that Yeshua told us to have in our hearts. Loving one another as He gave us the new commandment to do. And having patience with one another. This is a lesson I've had to learn. The Heavenly Father is so incredibly patient with me also. All the things that I am not getting and not understanding that He's trying to show me after years of rebukes and warnings and chastisements. Some of these things are hard for me to accept. And for many others also. But let's not give up on one another and constantly communicate the seriousness of the words of Yeshua. The call He gives to set us free from our lives. In Revelations, He says He rebukes who He loves. He chastises them. He puts reins on them and steers them and corrects them. We have to be willing to humble our hearts and be yielded to that. And as David rejoiced in the words of a righteous man correcting him, bringing him back to the law, rejoicing in the law and the statutes and judgments of a righteous and holy Creator, let's point each other in the same seriousness with love to that righteousness, to the truth found in the commandments and the statutes and the judgments, so that people can be corrected from the sin, be shown the teachings of Yeshua, and be changed. I mean, this truth, it shocks us sometimes. It becomes so uncomfortable because it takes us out of all the vain traditions that have enslaved us or that we become comfortable in. And the enemy wants us to feel comfortable in all these traditions. He wants us to feel comfortable in the lies that we've accepted because we have chosen these lies. We are the product of the choices that we make. And it's so easy to say inside ourselves excuses and justifications and not take things so seriously. To not want to take full responsibility for the choices we're making inside our hearts. This is the tool the enemy uses. Self-pity, self-centeredness, justification. For us to learn from Yeshua, as He said, His yoke is easy and His burden is light if we learn from Him. When we go through constant struggles and trials, it says many are the afflictions of the righteous. That Elohim will deliver us as we learn from Him and change our hearts. But we have this responsibility. Just as we have the responsibility with as much love and patience and understanding as we can give to one another to help point them to that truth. So let's not keep taking to the extremes, because evil is in the extremes. I myself have fallen into some of the extremes of that anger in some of my earlier videos. Wanting to is, I've been grateful sometimes for the hard rebukes that I've gotten from older brothers. I wanted to communicate some of that seriousness. But the fact is, brothers and sisters, the words of Yeshua are strict enough. And if we communicate them in the dead seriousness of what they are, our brothers and sisters can cherish them. Because treasuring something is what causes us to remember it and learn from it. So let's treasure the words of Yeshua, point one another to Him, so that we can learn from Him and be changed and be set free. And then we won't be hypocrites. Because all of our actions will come from our hearts. And we won't be just trying to justify ourselves or change on the outside, but actually receive the words of truth. Amen.